To get us started for this next session, which is AI and digitalization, the pragmatic approach to digital transformation, creating ecosystems that meet your business needs, we're going to do things a little bit differently. I'm going to ask two of the panelists to come up on stage and give us a teaser of what to expect for the next part of the discussion. So I'm going to ask on stage Martin WAHLGREN, CEO Consat, and Andreas Grugel, Global Director Quality, EHS Eberspächer. Over to you, 5 minutes, a teaser.
So, hello, my name is Martin WAHLGREN, and I'm the CEO of the Consat Group. And to be frank, without digitalization, I wouldn't be standing here today, and I wouldn't be a proud member of SIBC either. So, Consat, we started back in '86 as an engineering company developing tech solutions for the automotive and the industry. So some examples, we have, for example, made all electronics and software and connectivity for the first pure electric Volvo, the C30 Electric. We are developing production lines for SKF, for their world-class factory production lines, for example. So in 2005, we made an outsourcing agreement with Volvo Buses and overtook their telematic development team. And today we are developing and delivering fleet management and traffic management solutions around the world. So we are present in Australia, in Canada, by far the biggest one in Scandinavia, in Dubai, in Brazil, and we're now also entering into India. So our journey it is an amazing journey, I would say, and it's actually enabled by digitalization. So for all of our customers around the world, we have one code base. We are working agile, and every third week we are releasing a new software for our customers, and that software is updated over the air to all the buses and all traffic management systems. So without that, that wouldn't be possible. So digitalization is super important. And when it comes to electrification, it's even more important. So because when you're going electric in a city, you need advanced systems to be able to manage the electric fleet. So that is super good for us, I would say. And with our team in India, which we are trying to also get into India when it comes to public transportation, and with our team in India, we have also strengthened our ability to use connectivity and digitalization towards industry. And one can say the winning recipe for digitalization is what we claim domain knowledge, and you need to be present over time with the customer so that you will be able to apply continuous development. And then, of course, you need to have a great system. And your system needs to be able not just to fulfill your own purpose, it also needs to be able to connect to other systems, because nowadays a system is a system of systems. So our winning recipe is, as I said, domain knowledge, continuous development, and a great system. But for Industry 4.0 and IoT, there it's actually harder. So many companies have tried some big bang projects, and some companies are still waiting, because in industry, the need is there, but the need varies. So it's harder to get a critical mass, more generic solutions to fit all. So then we have experienced that one need to add one extra ingredient in the winning recipe, and that is the pragmatic approach, which we will talk more about today. And I would like to welcome Mr. Andreas from Eberspächer.
Thanks for handing over, Martin, and thanks for having me here in the panel today. I'm working for the company Eberspächer. in Germany, which is well known in the Scandinavian countries more for the heater side. In India, it's more known for a brand name that nobody can pronounce, actually. So I'm working for a business unit called Climate Control Systems Bus and Coach. So that was a perfect match with Consat, dealing with public transport as well and fleet management systems. And yeah, we also have a large presence in India, in Bangalore, with a production plant and a market share of 30%. And yeah, just jumping into what Martin has just talked about, it was an amazing journey that we have taken in terms of digitalization and putting our first digital footprint into the world with the system developed together with them.
Thanks so much, Andreas. Martin, if you could take a seat, I will call our other two panelists to the stage. I'm going to call ANOOP Sharma, Data and AI Expert, LTIMindtree, and VINAY, Head of Digital Services, Consat-Orahi. We heard earlier this morning, and I think it's important to kind of keep the connection going throughout the day because we're not having different conversations. We have different speakers on stage, but we're having the same conversation. And that is the hardware and software component coming together. So I actually want to start with you, Andreas. Now, you touched upon a little bit about how Consat-Orahi and Eberspächer found each other, but your story in terms of how you saw potential and you found Consat to deliver that potential is something that's worth all of us hearing. So take us through that case study.
Yeah, I would like to go a little bit into the whole story and explain a little bit what Eberspächer has done in that time, coming from a company that is really non-digital, selling air conditioners and heaters for buses and coaches, moving into digitalization. It was actually triggered by a strategic discussion that we were having in Eberspächer back in 2018 or 2019 when the buzzword or the keyword digitalization popped up. So we identified that to be key in future and said we need to develop something, we need to become more digital. And actually there are several ways of moving into digitalization. One is you create wallpaper-like business cases, you discuss in circles, you go in rounds with the upper management, and you are not moving forward a single step. The second approach that you can take, and that was exactly the pragmatic approach that Martin was talking about, is just to start things and to think of a first potential business model, a minimum viable product that could be sellable to a small group of customers. Actually, we are calling it the so-called beta user club. And then one other key is to put together a team of people that is working on that digital approach. And what we have put together was a very diverse team, an international team. We created a lot of trust in that team and we're acting together, and it was amazing to see with how much fun the team was moving towards a complete product roadmap just within a short period of time. And that's actually how we came to our product, eConnected, that is serving the bus and coach operators around the globe right now in a first test setup, where they can monitor their buses, the air conditioning system, the performance, the maintenance status, and lowering their operational cost. So really amazing.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask Andreas one question. What was the why? Why did you go looking?
Why we kicked it off, actually. Actually, it was the strategic discussion that we were having at that time, and there are a lot of buzzwords around, like Industry 4.0 and digitalization. We identified that as one of the key megatrends around the globe, and that was actually kicking off. So we had not even a single clue how we can get digital at that time.
Martin, you were saying something.
Yeah, and I think you will. You forgot to mention that you will launch your product at Busworld this week. In Brussels.
And that's actually happening as we speak, right? Exactly.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned, of course, many things when you talked about the solution and the problem. And one of the things is how you bring together different teams, how you bring together different solution providers. And it could be, and you touched upon it, Martin, the system of systems, an ecosystem approach. Vinay, this is something that Consat-Orahi is working with and has been applicable in this case study, and of course, how you work with your other customers. A few comments on that.
Of course. Arati, first of all, I should compliment the organizers here. It's a fantastic event, a lot of energy, a lot of good discussions. And And I noticed that one key word that's been repeatedly used since morning is ecosystem. And I think everyone understands ecosystem is very important when you talk about digitization. And if you think of it, I mean, world actually includes, the whole world includes a very large ecosystem that hangs together. And this large ecosystem, yeah, includes many, many small ecosystems that have to interconnect with each other. And digitization is basically a concept of actually using limited resources that we have in a best possible way. And if one does not understand ecosystem, you can't be smart. Digitization relies on gathering and analyzing data that's produced and consumed by actors that are participating in that ecosystem. So the key is to really have an open framework that allows the sharing of data between the actors in the ecosystem. And I would, to that extent, would want to actually talk of an example that has had a very massive success, an example of a financial ecosystem in India. Those of you know, those of who have traveled to India, UPI was in a platform that was launched 4 years back in India to connect basically the banking system with merchants, large, small merchants, to run on a mobile infrastructure on a pan-India basis. And if you talk of Sweden, I mean, we have not had cash in our pocket for the last 10 years. And if you traveled India 4 years back, you would not live without cash. You have to have a cash in your pocket. But I was actually in India this summer for 3 weeks, and I actually didn't use cash even a single time. For going into a large store to a smallest merchant on the road, it was everything digital. Such a massive, massive success. I've not seen that ecosystem being built in such a quick way. And I think, of course, it requires participation of government, it requires participation of industries, it requires participation of merchants, civil society, citizens, and that's a good example. I mean, it runs almost close to 9 billion transactions every month, and does almost 1.5 trillion worth transactions every year. So ecosystem is important. I mean, at Consat and Consat-Orahi, this is actually our DNA. We understand and we rely on actually understanding the bigger picture. We understand what it takes to really bring experts to integrate all parts of ecosystem. And one of the ecosystems that we're working very actively, which unfortunately is not a good example, is what you see in most cities, in terms of driving the carbon footprint down, the concept of electrification, which has been discussed since morning. If you look at ones who drive EV cars, you require 10 applications today on your handset to guarantee an access to a charging infrastructure. So on and contrary, a very immature ecosystem, an ecosystem that requires a lot of actors to come together to really bring a seamless experience to the end consumers and create value for the society. And I know, Martin, you're very passionate about that discussion. And this is one of our very active topics that we're working across all the actors in Nordics.
And we've had this great conversation, of course, Consat and Consat-Orahi and SIBC about how we can make this and scale this in India in terms of interoperability, in terms of standardization, in terms of how to take the transport system forward in all these different ways. But of course, smart systems approach. Digitization is one step of this, and we take one second step, and it brings us to generative AI. It brings us to the world of ChatGPT. It brings us to the unknown. And now, ANOOP, of course, coming from LTIMindtree, a recent acquisition as well. You stand on the cutting edge of what can happen. You're working with, of course, your own generative AI model, and you have, of course, a global footprint. What do you see in this conversation when it comes to digitalization and AI as the next steps when it comes to Sweden and India, but of course, what's applicable globally as well?
Hi, everyone. My name is ANOOP, and glad to be here. I mean, I've lived and studied and worked across the globe from India. 20 years ago, I moved to Nordics, Norway and Sweden. Since then, I'm doing AI and data projects in Nordics. So whatever I've learned here. We live in uncertain times. Uncertainty is the new certainty. We live in the era of pandemic, war, economic instabilities, things like there's a big disruption coming also from technology as well as the ESG and sustainability growth. Everything is changing around. So that's where I think most of the leaders are going towards AI to get the decisions, to understand how should they be prepared for the future. Some of the most common things that I have seen, application of AI, one is around stitching the whole story of silos together and getting into the decisions and the decision science. I myself have been visiting at least 10 to 15 CEOs during the COVID times where they want to know, what do we do now? They are against an unprecedented situation. So how do you take decisions? The vessels, the ships is in the sea. They don't know which one to bring it back, which one to dry dock. The second situation is because of big challenges with mobility. Now, how do you really do remote operations? How can AI use computer vision for quality inspection of remote sites? How can you put automation so that there is a decisions taken remotely? How do you use AR, VR, augmented reality? That's the second. And third, in the ChatGPT, generative AI world, how can you augment it knowledge, right? So I think, and how do you really train and build capacities, capabilities, and do it remotely with the help of ChatGPTs, Gen AI, etc. This is where we see most of it. He gave a great example of Indian economy, 1.1 billion mobile users using mobile transactions, from somebody earning 50 krono a day to somebody earning 5 million krono a day. Everybody is on the same platform. And we are working with the Tax Authority of India, so we are directly responsible for increasing the tax and increasing 6%, 8% year on year. It's such a complex ecosystem. We still have only 350 million users on the platform, but the level of complexity without AI and without data, it's impossible to crack. So that is one good example. Another example is what COVID has done. It has brought a huge amount of users to digital world. Were we ready for it? From both customer experience as well as identifying fraudulent transaction, that's where I think AI is playing a big role. Now, Sweden, I see, is a hub of innovation. Starting from Spotify. Now we engage with a lot of companies. Of course, Nokia, Ericsson are the ones that we're helping with 5G rollout. So that connects the whole world. But the real implementation happening in automotive industries with the self-driving cars, self-driving trucks. The whole world of combustible engine is changing to more electrifying world. There is a big disruption in business model. So we are trying to apply AI onto that. And then you will see a lot of other industries using AI. So we believe this is the time where we have to all come together in an ecosystem. And of course, work towards both businesses, society, and for helping people, both safety as well as innovation.
I think what I'm going to do now, when we heard again earlier today, the importance of this transition is that we must find our place in it. There's a lot of fear around this transition about, is my job safe? What will happen tomorrow? Where am I going? What should I be looking at in terms of my skilling? And when we look at Sweden, for example, the recent report by the Swedish and IT telecom industries puts the tech talent gap in Sweden at 70,000 people. And this needs to be filled for Sweden to stay competitive by 2026. Working with the panelists on the stage today, I'm going to ask you, of course, you're working now with digitization, with AI, generative AI, but you're also working, as you mentioned, with diverse skill sets. What do you see as the challenge and the gap and the opportunity with what we're seeing now on paper, which is we need talent and we need it fast? How do we actually mobilize this? Martin, I'm going to start with you.
It's always challenging, of course. That's why we manage talking about this topic. But digitalization also, it's also possible to achieve more with less people. That's one important factor. But for our concern, it was like a strategic initiative to start our team and joint venture in India with Consat-Orahi, primarily because we want to be able to scale faster and get access to really skilled developers. So it's not just like a price issue. Like outsourcing, it's more to get access of really skilled people and being able to scale faster. So that's that will not solve everything, but it's an important piece in our way forward.
And then Vinay, I'm going to come to you next because Consat-Orahi, of course, is a outcome from this discussion.
I mean, just to add on what Martin said, I mean, if you look at digitization now is almost at strategic level, actually in execution with most enterprises and industries, especially in Nordics, quite matured. And it's no more a discussion on the PowerPoint now. Andreas alluded to it. I mean, they're implementing it, and they're implementing it in a very pragmatic way. I guess the challenges are not so much now on the technology side. I mean, 15 years back, if we were sitting here on the sofa, we would be talking about, oh, is cloud scalable and is edge scalable? I mean, how will you code here and how will you code there? I mean, we are living in a very interesting times when technology is not an issue. We're living in a very interesting times when actually there is now opportunity to bring technologies together, which is called cross-technology convergence, to really drive and support industries to drive digitization. I think the challenges lie more on people, culture, organizational capabilities. And I think that's where India and Sweden is an interesting, extremely interesting mix, because you bring on one end more top-down, pragmatic, very pragmatic way to innovate. I think you need to give that to Sweden. Amazing innovations in a very small country, very top-down, but very pragmatic way. And then you come with India very bottoms up and ready to sort of, execute. If you have a plan or not, just execute. And bottoms up approach, but bottoms up approach to really bring scale from day one. And I think this basically marriage is an amazing marriage, which brings the engineering mindset and the engineering innovation to digitization capabilities that India is so strong now on a global level. And it can only sort of build a value which is not a decimal value. It's a binary value. 1 + 1 = 10. So I think it's amazing. India and Sweden is really at that phase where they can bring a lot of value to take care of problems in their countries, but also on a global level.
So with that, I'm going to move to Germany and say, from the customer side, now you've heard what Vinay and Martin have said, kind of the pragmatic approach, bottoms up, top down, have a solution. When we spoke, you mentioned something very interesting that I want to come back to and want you to unpack for us, again, when it comes to the question of talent, and that's intercultural trust.
Absolutely, and this is what we are living at Eberspächer, for example. So we also see the talent gap in Germany, actually, also on the mechanical engineering side, due to the demographic change that we are faced with. I think in Sweden it's exactly the same thing. And the intercultural trust, so we have a very diverse team sitting in Germany, sitting in Bangalore, sitting in Monterrey, Mexico, that brings a lot of value, but it needs to have the trust within the team. Besides that, we are using also the digital tools to collaborate with each other. And I think there is a great benefit also in this international teams that we are working with and the hybrid working models, since we can use the different time zones to be much more efficient as such.
ANOOP, of course, LTIMindtree, of course, has a footprint that spans the globe as well. So talent is not something that is strange to you.
Yeah, I think there's a big shift these days. I mean, McKinsey did a study for Nordics for artificial intelligence, and they said there's an $80 billion, additional value AI can add. This was 2017. Post-COVID, the value is $200 billion, mostly in logistics, transportation, manufacturing, and services sector. Now, this is what we want to do, but if you look at the reality, 20 years in Nordics says that Nordics and Swedish, customers, they are the first to do the experiments, to do the POCs, to do the proof of concepts, but they are the last to operationalize any new concepts. And I think maybe because of the consensus culture, maybe because of budget things, maybe because of collaboration, but that's the fact. But there is a big shift in the momentum. The clients used to tell us, hey, please come help us and please transform us. Now there's a big shift. They're saying, please transform the business with us. So they want to be equally in the boat, right? Now to achieve that, there is a big skill gap. And to fulfill that, I think we have to bring, of course, a lot of talent, but also new ways of working. Now, ChatGPT, Gen AI, and other technologies, they can do a lot of things for you, right? They can act as a sauce chef. So you can look into the ingredients in your fridge and decide the best recipe for your food. You can write a song. You can help your kid with the homework. You can put a best personalized marketing campaign. And then you can also help with debug a code. So I think we use various ways to help us for that. We have a vision. We are building a center of 1,000 local people in next 2 years with AI technologies within Nordics. The whole idea is to marry this with the local talent and then create a future, what we call it, a lab and factory model, where you innovate and then also deliver at scale. There's also a big component. We're visiting a lot of universities. I think we believe that doing a lot of such projects, you need to have a lot of diverse team. So you just can't have a technical background. So we have a concept called DIVA in LTIMindtree, which basically means women in data and analytics. We realize that 50–60% of data and analytics teams come with women and people with different background of sex, age, orientation, social background, education background. So we realized that we started getting a lot of value in addition to the engineers. If you put people with statistics background, art background, social background, sometimes even drama background, because we are in the end, if you're delivering a solution to somebody, we have to know that world. So I think we have seen a lot of these changes. So you will see very diverse resources and strategies from our side.
And I think we talk a lot about, of course, digital bias. So the more diverse your inputs, the more diverse your outcomes. Martin, I want to come to you with 2 questions in one. We call this panel the pragmatic approach. I'd like you to unpack the pragmatic approach for us, but focus it on command and control centers for transport. Of course, take Gothenburg as an example, and then I'd like you to look in the black box to say, what can we expect to take this and scale and replicate in India?
So first, the pragmatic approach, which we're actually applying the pragmatic approach also for public transportation. As I said, every 3rd week we are launching a new release. So taking things step by step and learning by, sometimes we do mistakes and it's now easier to correct them. So that is, you're continuously learning. So I think that is super important. And what we would like to bring to India is, for example, when it comes to electrification. So to be able to run electrified buses, you need to master 3 different areas. You need to be able to manage the bus and see the state of charge, state of health, be able to preheat and pre-cool the bus before it takes off when it's connected to the grid. You need to be able to connect it to the chargers. And those 2 pieces are quite many companies that can master, so to say. But the 3rd piece, that also being able to manage the traffical part, knowing when the bus will leave next morning, how much energy is needed for that specific route. That is not that common, and that is what we are doing. Putting these 3 pieces together, not just for a research project, but for a daily basis. That is what we can contribute to, for example, to India. Not just to mention all the safety features and collecting data about closest collisions and all that kind of stuff that we can talk for hours about. But so I'm convinced that we can support India. And I've read that in India, you will go for 500,000 electric buses in just some years. And we are really eager to help India.
And there's a platform for that. And it's cities, but we should talk more. But I'd like to now end this panel by asking each of you to give us a 1-sentence answer. We have this digital future that we're looking at. Digitalization and AI play a strong role in where we are going. If I could ask you each to pinpoint 1 factor that will be crucial to optimizing this transformation and this journey, what would that be? Anoop, I'm going to start with you.
I think if you see there is a 2.4 trillion to 4.1 trillion business value market for AI, as per the experts, and we see the use of ChatGPT in November last year was 100 million. in January was 200 million, and now it's somewhere around 1.6 billion. So if you have 1.6 billion subscribers globally, basically that means there is a huge amount of adoption. And that's the only thing that works in digital world. So we believe that we are on the verge of an S-curve. There will be a big difference between the leaders and the laggards who are investing onto this and who are getting ready for the future. So we should be there.
Andreas.
Yeah, take the pragmatic approach. We learned a lot during the start of the project since we failed with a couple of the efforts that we have taken in the beginning. So we took the pragmatic approach, started with a one single point, and it was amazing to see the journey, how many digital products have been developed on that road, actually. So you need a starting point. Don't be scared of digitalization, and just take a good partner, a good intercultural team, diverse team, and that will be successful.
And I would say that you started off with that, Vinay, but I think that one of the most important topics for electrification globally is to create a common marketplace for like roaming, for charging and other digital services. Otherwise, it will not take off. Today, every OEM has tried to make their own solution, and it's really hard. So here, there is definitely a room for improvements that can combine electrification and digitalization.
Yeah, I'm the last one, so I'll give 3 short sentences. I promise I'll do it in same, one large one. So first one, pragmatic approach. I think we talked about it. That's the only way to create value at every small step of a digital journey. There's no other way. Second, engineering and digitization is a perfect match, and that's why the partnership of Sweden and India has huge potential. And last, give and take. Digitization is about ecosystem, and if there's no give and take, there's no value.
I'd like to actually add to the panel, I think hopefully the audience agrees with me, what we're actually seeing is a really strong example of partnership. And pragmatic approach is actually staying close to business and doing what is possible fast. And I thank you all so much for sharing that with us. And I'd like the audience to help me give them a warm hand of applause.